When I was a young adult, there was a day I was walking with the automaton. I doubt anybody else knew the automaton by that name. Their name might have been Orphan Kid back in high school, or another title similarly absent of an actual name. For whatever reason, however, I was chosen to know the nature of the automaton's being. What was the automaton, at least according to an actual name? While we were walking, the automaton told me in no uncertain terms of a plan. The plan was to change the world. I imagined dramatic orchestral music playing around us as the words came out. I have a plan to change the world. The plan was to create content and to distribute it on the interconnection. The interconnection, according to the automaton, was a place where businesses distributed their dressed-up press releases, where politicians laid their election campaign signage, where government bureaucrats manufactured consent for wars on foreign territory. The automaton called it the virtual refuge for the scum of the earth. It wasn't always these things. The interconnection was founded as a tool for academics to share research efficiently. For decades, the sole source of funding was the American government, and it seemed the interconnection was destined to be a public good. The way history has it recorded, there were enough people with private financial ties to the research to turn the socialist interconnection dream into a capitalist nightmare. The private investors corporatized the project and convinced all the world's other governments to invest in the infrastructure to connect to the new interconnection they were building. These marketeers told everyone it was a tool to connect all the people of the world. Communication technology started with the printing press. Its place in history was to educate the masses. Initially, people printed Bibles, distributed those Bibles. It was those Bibles that taught many generations to read. When the automaton said, "I will make the whole world educated again using the interconnection," it was in reference to the printing press. The printing press saw a similar privatization as the interconnection, though, unlike the interconnection, the printing press had a golden era where it functioned as a powerful tool for the people. People started printing not just Bibles, but reports on the atrocities at the time, distributing them to people so hopefully those who could effect change would find themselves moved enough to do so. In the golden era, people working in horrible factory conditions found reduced hours, increased pay, some benefits. The American people, lacking democratic values at the time, learned of Jacksonian democracy, and white men raised their voices to earn their universal white manhood suffrage. Enslaved populations in the island colonies realized they could stand together to get their land back. Things were better, but workers still worked for their masters, Americans still didn't let everyone vote, and those islanders were still made to do business with their former slaveholders. Some things couldn't be helped. When the reports made everyone aware of the mass deforestation that had occurred in the century prior, there wasn't much to do about it. The many felled forests were converted to farmland, which needed to stay farmland to feed everyone. When the beneficiaries of the atrocities read the reports, they retaliated. The proprietors of the complicit enterprises started buying up the printing presses. They artificially increased the cost it would take to start a weekly publication. In just 30 years' time, the cost was 50 times greater than it was before. Its use as a tool for the people died. The interconnection was quickly seized by those with capital. They had a mindset to protect themselves this time, to deny the interconnection any chance of promoting social well-being. I asked the automaton how the plan would be paid for. I have a small fortune to be claimed. I asked the automaton to explain. To have it, I am a very lucky individual indeed. When my father died, there was a claim on an insurance policy. The value of my fortune is 40% greater than the initial value of my portion of the insurance policy's payout. That's 40% adjusted for inflation. The policyholder was my great-grandfather. He was a kind man. He was a Christian missionary. I only ever met him as a very small child. He purchased the insurance policy on a recommendation from his friend. He was loaning money to my father for a trailer house. Trailer houses are known to burn down with their occupants inside of them, so the recommendation for the insurance policy was sound. When my father was killed in an accident unrelated to living in a trailer house, I was just a baby. My great-grandfather made the claim on the insurance policy, split the money into three, one equal to the value of the trailer house my father never paid off. The other two split into equal portions, one for me, one for my mother. My portion went into a trust. The 40% figure was due to its management by a certified financial planner, an accredited wealth management advisor. The other paid for my Christmas gifts from Santa Claus, food on the table, or anything my mother thought I might need as a child. The plan involved competing with the long dominant content platforms. The automaton had to compete, since using the platforms would be tantamount to their growth. Any refuge need be destroyed, the automaton said. The automaton knew the interconnection well. It was a trait assumed of everyone born, since the interconnection was sold off and mass-marketed. Given how much society had grown to depend on the interconnection, knowing its ins and outs was paramount. After the automaton explained the plan to me, we didn't see each other much. The only way to know how the plan was going was to find something that the automaton created on the interconnection, see how many people were looking at it. Even then, there was no way of knowing whether or not it was actually the automaton who created it. The automaton used different aliases, different forms of content, different techniques to capture audiences. What the automaton produced was constantly changing, always looking to be more successful than the last. It should have been easier and easier to figure out what the automaton was up to, given the greater and greater success of the content, but the automaton was ever a more innovative creator, always looking to expand the influence of the plan and its impact on the world. I knew the first few pieces well. They were mundane and innocent. They were stories of the automaton's upbringing. They painted a clear perspective of the plan's ideology. Anyone critical of the purpose of the content could tell what they critiqued. The automaton's creations were extensions of what the automaton was. That is to say, the automaton was also a creation. I had the privilege to know because the automaton's mother told me. She was dying at the time. From a hospital bed, she explained the whole ordeal. She remained cheery despite knowing she was not long for this world. The drugs they prescribed her were strong. They were the ones popularized by the pharmaceutical company that caused the countrywide opioid epidemic. She told me the automaton was created by her husband. The automaton's father was an automation engineer. He replaced the company's workers with robots. He worked very hard at his job so he could fleece them. She said he never got in any trouble for stealing either, said he must have been good at it because he quite often had to listen to his boss yelling about how incompetent delivery drivers were. It wasn't hard to rationalize stealing from the company. They didn't pay her husband very much compared to the amount of money he'd made the company in unpaid wages. They also regularly fired their workers so they could be replaced with robots. The most important thing he stole from the company was called a heart of automation. She told me that it doesn't look very interesting. It's small and shiny and round. It could power a robot indefinitely. Her husband put one inside the automaton, said that that meant the automaton could live forever. She laughed when she explained how she taught her child manners and ethics. She felt it was necessary since the world would be seeing a lot of the automaton. Of course, I knew that the world wouldn't really see a lot of the automaton, at least directly. They would see the plan's propaganda quite a bit, though. I owe my father my heart, I owe my mother the plan. I will change the world. Since the automaton could live forever, it had to be true.